My name is Diego Zuluaga. I'm a policy analyst at the Cato Institute Center for Monetary and Financial Alternatives. The Cato Institute is a US think tank, one of the largest, and our mission is to promote free markets, individual liberty, and peace in the United States and around the world. Well, on the beneficial ownership regime, there's absolutely no reason to make those registers public. It is a purely political maneuver. It will benefit nobody. In fact, you're dealing sometimes with people living in places that are politically unstable, politically repressive, where making that information public would put them in danger, and it would empower those despotic governments to do adverse things to people that we in free societies simply wouldn't countenance. And then in the second place, it doesn't improve the job of transparency and the exchange of information that these measures are allegedly trying to promote. I can completely understand that tax authorities want to keep in touch with each other as to the goings-on in each individual jurisdiction, not only so that people make sure that they comply with all their tax obligations, but also so we don't have double taxation, which is very damaging to international investment. But making those registers public only empowers activist groups and people who have ulterior motives unrelated to tax transparency to try and push for the harassment, the increased taxation, perhaps the expropriation of the people who are associated with these accounts or these companies. It is of no benefit to society at large. It will just limit economic freedom. Well, it's a pleasure to be in the Bahamas, as always, and it's a long-standing international financial center. Now, the Bahamas, of course, has a lot of experience in banking and trust management and wealth management. It's in competition with a lot of other IFCs, and that's one of the really great virtues of this sector, is that they've become centers of excellence, not only because they're small and they can experiment quickly and they can innovate in a more nimble way than larger jurisdictions where policy making is much slower and more subject to interest group pressures, but also because you have competition between jurisdictions, a division of labor that works very well, and where it is very difficult for any one place to either have low standards or to do a shoddy job of managing people's funds, because there will always be, capital is very mobile, and there will always be other locations that will be jumping up at the opportunity to take advantage of that business. And so the Bahamas' positioning is to try and keep up with that business environment, and at the same time to confront the policy environment in a way that recognizes that a lot of what's being asked of it are political issues that are domestic to the European Union, the OECD, sometimes also the United States, but have little to do with the vaunted purpose of transparency and exchange of information. We've gone beyond that. And in fact, if you look at the list of OECD uncooperative tax jurisdictions that they drew up in 1998, there are no countries listed there anymore, because all the ones that were found uncooperative have cooperated since. So what we're at is a situation in which there's a redistribution of taxation that's being attempted here. And that is attempting to harm IFCs, the people they benefit, including pension funds, on which everyone around the world relies. The state is very special in that it has a worldwide income taxation system, which means that not only as a US resident you have to declare all of your income from around the world, which is typical of very many Western countries, but also as an American citizen, which I am not, but as an American citizen living in a foreign jurisdiction, you actually have to still file taxes in the United States. Now, FATCA has been an added burden to the extent that it requires even people with relatively small accounts to make sure, to go to great lengths, not only that they comply today, but on a retroactive basis with these new regulations. It's very onerous. It's part of a package of measures of transparency and reporting of information, which is supposed to curb illicit finance and crime and terrorism, which are very worthy goals, but it's targeting a lot of people who have nothing to do with those activities. And not only are we wasting law enforcement resources in the process, but the compliance costs are very high, and it's just placing an increasing amount of obligations on financial institutions, increasing the cost of business to them. So all around, it is a highly inefficient way of going about this issue. And as to the opportunities for repeal, I think in the long term it will probably end up being repealed because it simply isn't a cost-effective regulation. In the short term, I think there's a lot of pressure to keep it in place, but I hope the United States itself a very large financial center and very much active in a lot of the activities that Bahamas and other IFCs are involved in, will recognize that you want to encourage capital mobility, you want to make it easy for people to invest, and you want to promote FDI into your own jurisdiction by being an open jurisdiction with regard to other locations and your own residents. Well, I absolutely think that international financial centers serve a very useful purpose, and they will probably continue to exist. Because if you look at the world economy is becoming more, not less complex. Supply chains are becoming more integrated across countries, not less integrated. The value of intangible assets, intellectual capital, intellectual property, patents, as a measure, as a share of all production is only increasing, and people are saving more and wanting to invest more. And those are all activities in which IFCs specialize, where their tax neutrality is very beneficial to international investment and make sure that most of the return to international investment goes to the ultimate investor rather than to intermediaries and to government authorities, which would only discourage investment. And then in the second place, that there's a specialization and innovation going on in these jurisdictions that enables things to even get better over time. Now, particularly, we're starting to see the rise of emerging markets, which are hungry for capital, with a lot of young people eager to work and eager to do valuable things. And they've been growing very fast, in fact, but they don't often have the legal institutions necessary to make sure that that environment is stable over the long term. And so IFCs can supply a basis from which foreign direct investment can happen, and investors can be sure that they won't be expropriated unfairly, that they won't be taken advantage of, that the regime won't radically change from one day to the next. And that, of course, means that developing countries have an easier time attracting capital, not a harder one. So I think IFCs are both very important, very necessary, and will continue to play an important role in the global economy.